Indelible Weinstein's Deep Dive with Gregory S. Prindle. Deep Dive. Deep Dive. Deep Dive. Indelible Weinstein's Deep Dive. A deep dive. Deep dive. That's enough, now. Deep. That's enough.
When you think
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty ambitious, maybe a little irreverent even. We're diving into wine criticism, but asking a question almost nobody asks. Who critiques the critics? Who reviews their reviews?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's a bit of a philosophical tightrope walk, isn't it? It's also, like you said, really entertaining. We're sort of digging into the fun of reading all these opinions on aromas and flavors that, let's be honest, are super subjective. The source we're using today puts it perfectly, calls the whole thing a structure built on the fragile scaffolding of point systems designed to objectify the ineffable.
The ineffable. I love that. It sets the stage perfectly for this deep dive. And the whole idea for this comes from Peter Prindle, the founder of the Indelible Weinstein. He had this quote, "Wine is not the liquid, but the metaphor fermenting in its wake."
Exactly. And that quote is really key to understanding our main source today, the Indelible Weinstein. They have this unique segment called the Wine Review. They don't just read the reviews, they literally review the reviews of the reviewers that review.
Okay, that's wonderfully meta. Pure commentary, digging into style, bias, language, all of it.
It really is. And the wine caught in the middle of all this, it's a big one.
Right, the 2022 Chateau de Beaucastel, Chateau Neuf du Pape. The red one, obviously. Kind of a benchmark for the Southern Rhone, isn't it?
Absolutely a standard bearer. And it's a great pick for this exercise because Beaucastel is famous for, throwing all 13 permitted grapes into the fermentation together. Our source had a funny way of putting it, like Big Brother, but with grapes.
Okay, Big Brother with grapes. I like that. It suggests a certain chaos, complexity, anyway.
Yeah.
Makes sense it would get different reactions.
Definitely. So to understand the critiques of the critiques, we need to know the players, the critics themselves.
Good point. Let's set the scene. Who are the four main reviewers or journals we're looking at today?
Okay, first up, James Suckling. He's often called old school, and our source jokingly compares him to the Dr. Dre of wine reviewers.
Dr. Dre.
Yeah. Influential, long career. He was big at Wine Spectator for years, then started his own thing back in 2010, focuses a lot on Bordeaux, Tuscany, Rioja, the big names.
Got it. Old school. Who's next?
Then there's Jeb Dunnock. Now, his background is pretty different. He was an aerospace engineer.
Seriously, from aerospace to wine.
Yep. Apparently, he just really loved Rhone Valley wines. So much so, he started the Rhone Report in 2008. Then he wrote for the Wine Advocate for a while, covering Rhone and California, before going fully independent with his own site.
Wow, okay. That's quite a shift. So the Wine Advocate itself is on the list, too.
It is. Founded by Robert Parker, of course, back in '78, became the absolute standard, the gold leaf standard, as the source puts it. And Parker really pushed that 100-point scale, which just took over everywhere. Worth noting, since 2019, it's been owned by the Michelin Guide.
Michelin. Okay, that's interesting context. Maybe shifts the focus a bit towards, I don't know, restaurants, luxury.
Could be, yeah. Ties it more into that whole fine dining ecosystem.
Yeah.
And finally, we have Decanter. Huge British publication, been around since 1975, sort of the spinal column of British wine journalism.
Right, very established. They use masters of wine, regional experts.
They do. But here's a fascinating detail. They use the traditional 20-point system for most things, except for the USA. For the U.S. market, they switched to the 100-point scale.
No way, really? So they adapt the scoring based on the audience.
Exactly, which tells you a lot, doesn't it? It's not purely about objective assessment. It's also about market expectations, commerce, not just consistency.
Huh. That really highlights the subjectivity, or at least the market forces involved. Okay, so that's our lineup. 4 different critics, different styles, even different scales sometimes.
Precisely. So now let's get into the wine review itself. The core idea from the source is this tension. Emotional reviews versus technical ones, and how that maybe links to the scores. We'll look at the score the critic gave the wine, and then the score the Indelible Weinstein gave the review.
All right, let's do it. Where do we start? Suckling.
Let's start with Suckling, our lifestyle poetry guy. He gave the Beaucastel a massive 97 points.
Yeah.
Very high. His notes were short, textured, layered, precise. Also mentioned warm herbs and silty, beautifully melted tannins.
97 points, okay. But how did his review score in the meta review?
His review got an 85 out of 100. Respectable, but, lower than the wine score. The Metacritics liked the short notes, but they kind of poked at the specifics. Like, what exactly is a warm herb? Is that just nice-sounding fluff?
Yeah, I can see that. Vague but pleasant.
Right. Their conclusion was that Suckling prioritizes emotion over anatomy. It's wine is lifestyle poetry. They did acknowledge the power of a phrase like beautifully melted tannins, but then amusingly compared it to chocolate lava cake.
Chocolate lava cake tannins. Perfect. Evocative, indulgent, maybe not super technical.
Exactly. Trading technical precision for memorable imagery. But is that good or bad? That's the question.
Okay, let's compare that to Jeb Dunnock, the aerospace engineer turned Rhone lover. What score did he give the wine?
Dunnock gave it 95 points. Still very high, just slightly under Suckling. His review talked about serious provençal goodness, just about overflowing aromas, peppery garrigue, that specific regional herb smell.
Garrigue, right time, rosemary, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And he also noted it slightly reminds me of the 2009 and gave it 2 decades of longevity.
Interesting reference to 2009 and 2 decades instead of 20 years.
Okay.
How did his review score?
His review actually scored the highest of the bunch, an 88 out of 100. But the critique was still pretty sharp. They called it a love letter, which sounds nice, but then questioned things like, what is serious provençal goodness? Can you spread it on toast?
Good point.
And they really jumped on that. Slightly reminds me of the 2009 line. Like, what does that mean? The vintage character, the global financial crash that year, a baguette he saw flying through the air.
Okay. Point taken. It assumes a lot of shared context. Very insider, maybe.
Very. And yeah, they also tweaked him for saying 2 decades. Just a bit formal, affected, maybe.
Right, a bit self-consciously stylistic. So 2 high scores from the more, let's say, narrative or emotional reviewers. Now, for the technical side. Wine Advocate.
Yep, let's shift gears. Wine Advocate scored the wine lower, 94 points. Still excellent, obviously, but below the other 2. And their review was, well, data. Lots of technical detail.
Like what?
Things like it was matured 100% in food trays, those huge old oak vats, a detailed breakdown of the grapes, 30% Mourvedre, 20% Grenache, and interestingly, 20% white grapes included in this red wine.
20% white grapes. Wow, okay, that is specific. And the tasting note part.
Very concise. The finish was just peppery, delicate, and long. That's pretty much it. The review itself scored an 86 out of 100 from the Indelible wine stain.
How did they describe that style?
They called the writer a verbal bricklayer, methodic, clean, and with sharp corners. The main criticism, a total lack of imagery or metaphor. They basically said, no fluff, no nonsense, no metaphor, and yet somehow not alive. That was the final kicker. Despite all the accuracy, it felt sterile to them.
Okay, so that's the core conflict right there, isn't it? Is accuracy enough? Does a review need poetry to capture the experience?
That's exactly what the source is probing. Is the anatomy, the futures, the percentages more useful than how the wine makes you feel? The Metacritic seem to argue that pure technicality misses the point.
Fascinating. Okay, one more. Decanter. The British perspective, where did they land?
Decanter scored it 96 points. So actually higher than Wine Advocate, just below Suckling. But their review was incredibly short, like under 30 words.
30 words for 96 points. What did they say?
Just dark and inky, powerful with muscular tannins and driving acid. That's basically the whole thing.
Oh, efficient. How did that review score?
It also got an 86 out of 100, same as Wine Advocate. The Metacritic described it as tight and British as a Savile Row tailor. And the language was like a telegram from the Royal Air Force wine officer.
Okay, I get the picture. Very brief, very proper.
But here's the interesting part. The critique admitted that even though phrases like muscular tannins and driving acid are total cliches,
They kind of work.
they actually convey something concrete,
Yeah.
something structural about the wine's power. So it lacked personality, maybe, but the precision landed effectively, even in its brevity.
So if we recap the wine scores, Suckling 97, Dunnock 95, Decanter 96, Wine Advocate 94. The 2 more emotional narrative reviewers gave the highest scores. The technical ones were a bit lower, though Decanter was still quite high.
Exactly. That pattern seems important. The feelings seem to generate higher points than just the structure.
Okay, so after dissecting everyone else's language, or lack of it, the Indelible wine stain had to offer its own review, right? Did they go full metaphor?
Oh, absolutely. They leaned right into the poetry they accused others of lacking. It gets pretty wild. They started by saying the wine opens with a soliloquy,
A soliloquy. Okay.
The Mourvedre grape, which is key for structure, apparently smells of rusted sabers soaked in cherry juice.
Rusted sabers. Soaked in cherry juice.
We got it.
Very vivid.
The raspberry note wasn't just raspberry. It was the kind stolen by foxes.
Mm.
And remember the Gehrig, Dunnick just said peppery Gary. The Indelible wine stain called it ethereal Gary by Jean-Joël Gaultier.
High fashion herbs. I love it. But what about the structure, the tannins and acid that Decanter mentioned?
Ah, yes. The acidity. It drives like a 1930s Bugatti with faulty brakes.
Faulty brakes. So thrilling, but maybe uncontrolled.
Thrilling, elegant, and absolutely unwilling to stop. That was the description. And the tannins weren't just muscular or silty. They were described as wiry and unresolved, like a disagreement between a fencing instructor and a philosopher.
A disagreement between a fencing instructor and a philosopher. Wow. They even concluded the whole wine was Kramer versus Kramer in a glass.
Exactly. Kramer versus Kramer.
So, are they saying the wine is good or that it's just conflicted, unstable?
That's the interpretation, right? The metaphor translates the technical. Instead of just saying strong tannins and high acid, they're saying there's tension, maybe even conflict between the parts. It's structurally interesting, maybe excitingly unstable, rather than perfectly smooth or integrated. They're using narrative to describe physical sensations.
Okay, I see. It's a different way to get at the structure. So after all that poetry, what score did the Indelible wine stain actually give the wine? Did they use points?
Nope, no under-point score.
Yeah.
They gave it their own rating.
A pronounced wine stain.
A pronounced wine stain, what does that equate to?
In their system, that's equivalent to about 94 points. So a high score, but maybe not quite as high as Suckling or Dunnick thought. And their definition for that rating is great. Difficult to remove and may require professional cleaning.
Okay, that fits. Difficult, requires attention. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And their final summary of the wine.
Just this. This is not a wine you drink. It is a wine that drinks you. Wow. Okay. That's memorable. Leaves an impression.
It really does. And that kind of sums up the whole point for you, the listener, right? Wine criticism is this weird space between, I don't know, poetry and performance art. The best reviews maybe aren't the ones that are perfectly objective, whatever that means, but the ones that give you a language, a way to think about your own experience with the wine.
So should we even bother reading reviews before we buy a wine then, given how subjective and stylistic it all is?
Well, the Indelible wine stain had some final advice on that, which I thought was brilliant. They said, should you read the reviews? Yes, but only if you've already finished the bottle.
Ah, so use them for reflection afterwards, not for prediction beforehand.
Exactly. Let them help you understand your own reaction, maybe give you words for it, but don't let them dictate what you should taste or feel before you even pull the cork. Experience it first. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Of course, it was fun.
Until next time.
For more wine news and wine articles, go to www.indeliblewinestain.com.